Hello, you're watching the business headlines on HW News with me, Ali Azhar. At a time when the country's aviation sector is railing, with the likes of Jet Airways being taken to bankruptcy court and Air India put on the chopping block for disinvestment, the time was ripe for someone to step up, take the reins, and usher in an era of dominance in the sector. And who better to do that than India's largest and most profitable airline, which commands a market share of 50% of the entire industry, Indigo Airlines. But as luck would have it, just at this crucial juncture, a turbulence of the worst kind has rocked Indigo and threatens to impede its dominance of the skies. Indigo is facing probably its worst crisis ever, as promoters Rahul Bhatia and Rakesh Gangwal are in the midst of an ugly public spat, with one promoter making serious allegations against the other for lapses of corporate governance and initiating questionable related party transactions against the interests of the company. The matter took a turn for the worse when on Tuesday, a letter was addressed to SEBI and the Prime Minister's office when one co-promoter detailed the misdeeds of the other, forcing the market regulator to intervene. Interglobe Aviations Limited is the holding company that runs Indigo Airlines. If one takes a look at the shareholding pattern of the company, it can be seen that both the promoters, Rahul Bhatia, who has an experience of close to 30 years in the travel and hospitality industry and has been in charge of operations of the company, and Rakesh Gangwal, who is a mechanical engineer from IIT Kanpur and is the technical brains behind the company. Both these promoters have almost identical stake in the company, with Mr. Bhatia holding 37.93% of shares and Mr. Gangwal holding 37% of shares, and the remainder of 25.07% being held by the public. The crux of the matter is that Rakesh Gangwal accuses Rahul Bhatia of being the dominant partner and exercising control over the company that is disproportionate to his shareholding, and further claims that he has been building an ecosystem of other companies that would enter into dozens of related party transactions to Mr. Bhatia's own benefit, and gave an example of a related party entering into a rental agreement with Indigo at below market rates without inviting competitive bids from third parties. Besides objecting to related party transactions without required approvals and serious lapses in corporate governance, Rakesh Gangwal raised objections to the fact that the articles of association of the company give Rahul Bhatia sweeping rights over important matters such as appointment of 3 out of 6 directors, appointment of the chairman, right to identify and screen candidates for the post of managing director, CEO and president of the company. However, what seems to be Mr. Gangwal's biggest objection was when he tried to call for an extraordinary general meeting of the shareholders to air his objections. He was vetoed as Mr. Bhatia had a greater representation on the board of directors. While Mr. Gangwal's arguments hold weight, as can be seen from the chart which depicts the total amount of related party transactions over the years, it can be seen that the amounts have been progressively increasing except for financial year ending 2019, which saw a slight reduction. So, Mr. Bhatia argues that his co-promoter refuses to share details of transactions which were not conducted at arm's length price, and that all such related party transactions have amounted to less than 1% of revenue each year. Mr. Bhatia further went on to say that for 13 years, Mr. Gangwal didn't raise a whisper against the related party transactions and year after year signed and approved the annual accounts. He also defended his stance, stating that Rakesh Gangwal's real agenda was to diminish and dilute his interest in the company. Mr. Bhatia also raised a relevant point, saying that when the airline began operations in 2005, it was him that undertook most of the economic risk and provided a significantly larger portion of guarantees and capital that was required, while Mr. Gangwal was generously offered 50% of equity. While these are the reported reasons for the feud, the real reason may be something else altogether. Ever since its inception in 2005, Indigo Airlines has used Pratt & Whitney engines for most of its fleet, and goes without saying that it was Rakesh Gangwal, who had an engineering background from IIT, that was the brains behind the negotiations to acquire them. However, these engines did not match well with Indigo's new Airbus Neo fleet of aircrafts and were leading to flight disruptions, forcing Indigo to look for other options. The airline in June signed a massive $20 billion contract for supply of LEAP 1A engines with US-based CFM International, which would be used in the airline's future fleet of airplanes. When Rajiv Gangwal refused to lend his hand to the company's ongoing negotiations with CFM International, Indigo went ahead and proceeded with the agreement without his consent. This may have been the reason why Rajiv Gangwal's ego could have been so hurt to the point of no return, which led his anger to spiral out of control and caused the biggest rift between two promoters of a top listed company in recent memory. While the promoters slug it out in a boardroom battle with their differences reaching as far as a market regulator, it is the shareholders of Indigo that bear the maximum brunt of their feud. Shares of the airline fell nearly 11% or 168 points to end the day at 1,398 points. Thank you for watching HW News. This is me signing off. Have a great day.